All right. Everyone get ready because today we are going deep on Don Quixote.
Don Quixote.
Yeah, are you ready for this one?
Oh, I'm excited.
I feel like everybody kind of knows like the basics, crazy night windmills.
Right.
But there's so much more to this book.
There is.
Like we were just talking before we started recording. I was like,
oh my gosh.
I had no idea.
It's a huge book.
It's a huge book.
Yeah.
And we've got a stack of sources here, like various analyses, different perspectives on it.
Translations?
Oh, yeah, different translations.
Different versions.
Right.
It's a very well-studied book.
Yeah, and for good reason.
Yeah.
So
it's considered one of the most important...
Let's just get into it. Like, what is Don Quixote?
Okay, so Don Quixote is a Spanish novel by Miguel de Cervantes. And it was originally published in 2 parts.
Okay.
The first part in 1605.
Okay.
And the second part in 1615.
Gotcha.
And it's considered one of the most important works of Western literature and is often called the first modern novel.
Really?
Yes.
That's a big deal.
It is.
Okay, so first modern novel, and like we said, it's been translated a bazillion times.
A bazillion and one.
It's one of the most translated books ever, so clearly.
Right.
This is something special that we need to talk about.
Yes.
Okay, so basic setup. I think most people know.
Okay.
The main guy is Alonso Quijano.
Yes.
Right?
That's right.
And he's kind of obsessed with chivalric romances.
He is, I think obsessed is putting it lightly.
Okay.
He reads so many chivalric romances that he actually starts to believe that he's living in one.
Okay.
And that's where the Don Quixote persona comes in.
Right.
He decides that he is a knight errant and he's going to go out and right all the wrongs of the world.
Okay, so how does he make that transition from Alonso Quijano to
Don Quixote?
Don Quixote.
Well, he decides that he needs to take on a knightly name.
Okay.
So he dubs himself Don Quixote.
Okay.
And of course, every knight needs
a horse.
A noble steed.
Of course.
So he's got Rocinante.
Rocinante. I love it. And every knight needs
a lady love.
A lady love. So Dulcinea, right?
Dulcinea del Toboso.
So is she an actual?
She is based on a real woman.
Okay.
A peasant woman named Aldonza Lorenzo.
Okay.
But in Don Quixote's mind, she is transformed into this perfect, idealized beauty.
Okay, so he's basically like creating this.
He's got this image of her in his head.
Yeah, this post-frame.
And she doesn't even know he exists.
Oh, wow.
So
kind of sad.
Yeah, well, one of the things that makes you think about the book is that, like, how much of what we believe
that's a point.
Is shaped by the stories that we consume.
Oh, that's deep.
It is.
Okay, so we can't forget Sancho Panza. The sidekick.
The squire.
The squire.
Yes.
Sancho Panza.
So who is he?
So Sancho Panza is a simple farmer.
Okay.
And he's in it for the promised riches that Don Quixote has promised him.
And let's be honest, a free ride.
Yeah.
So, but he's the ultimate pragmatist. So he is the perfect foil to Don Quixote's crazy idealism.
Right. So like their interactions are probably hilarious.
They're very funny.
Okay, so can you give us like an example?
One of the most famous examples is when Don Quixote charges at the windmills.
Okay.
You've got Don Quixote, who's convinced that these windmills are giants.
Right.
And he charges at them lance in hand.
Oh, my gosh.
And, of course, Sancho's like, dude, those are just windmills.
Well, Don Quixote is like, no, they're giants.
They're giants. We must slay them.
Oh, my gosh. So the book is divided into parts.
Yes.
Okay.
It's divided into 2 parts.
And each part is filled with these sallies.
Yes.
So what is a sally?
A sally is basically an adventure.
Okay, so like Don Quixote's adventures.
That's right.
Okay, gotcha.
It's important to note that it's not just a bunch of like slapstick moments strung together.
Okay.
These sallies are actually very cleverly woven together. And through these sallies, Cervantes actually explores themes of truth illusion.
Wow.
And even critiques the social and political norms of his time.
That's a lot to unpack.
It is.
In one book.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about the first sally.
Okay.
This is where he really like descends into madness, right?
Right. So
we're not talking like
no, he's not
a quirky personality.
No, he's genuinely convinced that he's living in a chivalric romance.
Okay.
So that descent is really important for us to understand the whole book.
Right.
You know, it's not just about poking fun at a crazy old man.
Right.
You know, Cervantes is really making us think about like how much our own realities are shaped by what we choose to believe.
Right.
You know?
It's a good point.
So
okay, so he's named his horse. He's, idealized Dulcinea,
Yeah.
and now he's ready for adventure.
Right.
So he sets off.
She does.
And he runs into
windmills.
the windmills.
Yeah,
So,
sure.
I mean, you've got to set this up for us.
So picture this, right? You have this aging guy
Yeah.
on a beat-up old horse,
Okay.
decked out in rusty armor,
Okay.
convinced that he is the hero of some epic poem.
Right.
And he sees these windmills in the distance and is convinced that they are giants.
Okay.
And he charges at them, lance in hand,
Okay.
and then gets...
Absolutely clobbered.
So does he fall off the horse?
I mean, you got to imagine,
Yeah,
like, it's a classic David and Goliath scenario, except David is delusional.
Right.
The Goliath is a windmill.
Oh, my gosh.
And the whole thing is more funny than tragic.
But he's not giving up.
Oh, no, he's not giving up.
Okay, so what happens next?
So he continues on, and he sees everything through this knightly lens.
Okay.
So every situation becomes a test of his chivalry.
Okay, so give us an example.
Okay, so he runs into two Benedictine friars
Right.
who are traveling with a lady in a carriage.
Okay.
Not to you or me.
Right.
It's just a group of travelers.
Yeah. To Don Quixote, they're evil enchanters holding a damsel captive.
Oh my gosh. So he attacks them.
Well, he tries to free the damsel.
Of course.
And it causes a whole ruckus.
Of course.
A Basque traveler who's with the lady challenges Don Quixote to a duel.
Okay.
Which, spoiler alert, does not go well for our knight.
Why?
Well, his horse is old.
Right.
He's slow. His armor is probably heavier than he is.
Yeah.
I mean, this is where Cervantes is really highlighting the absurdity of Don Quixote's worldview.
It's like that clash between fantasy and reality.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the lady actually has to step in and tell everybody to just let Don Quixote win.
Oh, really?
It's a ridiculous situation, but for Don Quixote, it's confirmation that he's a true hero.
So it's like he needs that validation.
He does.
But it's all in his head.
Yes.
Oh, gosh. Okay, so what happens?
Well, then they run into some goatherds.
Okay.
Some Yangazan porters who are not fans of Don Quixote's antics.
Yeah.
And even get into a brawl at an inn, which, of course, Don Quixote thinks is a castle.
Of course. So it's just like chaos.
It's chaos, but, that's Don Quixote in a nutshell.
So what is the significance of the inn?
Well, the inn is actually really important.
Right.
It's not just a setting for a fight.
Okay.
It's actually like a microcosm of 17th century Spain.
Oh, wow.
So you've got all these different social classes interacting.
Right.
And you've got Don Quixote trying to force this outdated chivalric code onto this messy modern world.
Oh, wow. So he's like a fish out of water.
Exactly.
Oh, my gosh. Okay. So, and then what about Sancho?
Well, poor Sancho gets tossed in a blanket by these mischievous inn guests.
Of course.
So he's definitely taking one for the team in this first sally.
But he gets his moments, right?
Oh, I hate that.
Like, I remember reading about, like, the helmet of Mambrino and the Barber's Basin.
Yes. So they find this Barber's Basin, and Don Quixote insists that it is the legendary helmet of Mambrino.
So it's just a normal basin.
It's just a basin.
And he's like, no, this
is a priceless relic.
It's like his imagination is
It's just taken over.
Taking over.
Yeah, and it gets him into even more trouble, right?
Oh, yeah.
He ends up freeing a bunch of galley slaves.
Why does he do that?
Because he thinks he's saving innocent victims.
Oh, no.
But these galley slaves are criminals.
So his good intentions
backfire spectacularly.
Oh, my gosh.
Yep.
Okay, so before he has to face, like, the consequences of that.
Right.
They wander into the Sierra Morena Mountains.
Yes, they do.
And they meet Cardenio.
Yes.
Who's this, like, heartbroken guy.
Yes, he's basically gone full hermit mode.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's the significance of Cardenio?
Cardenio is really interesting because even though his story seems like a sidetrack at first, it actually reflects some of the main themes of Don Quixote.
Okay.
So it's all about love betrayal and how stories can impact our lives.
Oh, wow.
Even drive us to extremes.
Okay.
You know?
So it's like this reflection of what's happening
exactly
with Don Quixote,
yes,
but in a different way.
Exactly.
Okay, so, and it's in the Sierra Morena that Don Quixote sends Sancho on a mission.
Yes, he does.
To deliver a letter to Dulcinea.
Yes.
And does Sancho find her?
He does not.
Why not?
Well, because she doesn't really exist.
Right. In the way that
Don Quixote thinks she does.
Right.
So he can't find her, but he ends up meeting the priest and the barber from their village who are not thrilled about Don Quixote's escapades.
Of course, they're probably going to get him back here.
Get him back here.
Stop this madness.
Exactly.
Okay, so what do they do?
Well, they're pretty clever.
Okay.
They cook up this scheme to lure Don Quixote home.
Okay.
And they use Dorotea, a woman they find, to pretend that she's a princess in distress.
And Don Quixote's going to fall for that.
Oh, he falls for it, hook, line, and sinker?
Yeah, of course he does, because he's
always eager to prove his knightly worth.
Oh, man.
So, which brings us back to that infamous inn where things are about to get even more complicated and hilarious.
Yeah, we're going to save that for part 2 of our deep dives.
Yes, we are.
So stay tuned. It's going to be a wild ride.
It is.
All right, we'll be right back.
See you then. That inn, right, like we were saying, it's like a little mini 17th century Spain.
Right, all these different characters coming and going.
Yeah, it's all happening there.
So Don Quixote's back.
He's back at the inn.
Still convinced about Dulcinea.
Oh, he's totally fixated on her.
But it's all thanks to Sancho's little lie.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Sancho had to, like, make something up?
Right, because Don Quixote's like, where's the letter?
Yeah, he's like, where's the reply? Where's my lady love?
What did she say?
And Sancho's like,
I had to improvise.
He totally made up this story.
About an enchantment.
Yeah, he's like, oh, she can't see you. She's under a spell.
And Don Quixote just believes it?
Of course he does. He wants to believe it.
Right, it's easier than
facing the truth?
Yeah, that maybe she's just not interested.
Exactly. It's this idea of, like, the power of belief, right?
Right, he's choosing his fantasy world.
Over reality.
Yeah. Okay, so what happens at the end this time?
Oh, it's a whole other set of shenanigans.
Like what?
Well, there's the infamous wineskins incident.
Okay, wineskins. What is that all about?
So you got to picture this.
Okay.
Don Quixote is half asleep.
Okay.
He stumbles into the storage room at the end, sees these bulging wineskins.
Okay.
And is convinced that they're a giant.
What?
Who has kidnapped Princess Micomicona.
Wait, who is Princess Micomicona?
Oh, that's a whole other story.
Okay.
But the point is...
Don Quixote's seeing giants again?
He's seeing giants everywhere, even in wineskins.
I mean, it's hilarious.
It's classic slapstick.
But also kind of sad.
Yeah, there's a layer of sadness to it, for sure.
Okay, so is this where the Santa Hermandad comes in?
Ah, yes, the long arm of the law.
Right, because he freed those galley slaves.
Exactly. They're not going to let that slide.
So they show up at the inn.
An officer shows up looking for Don Quixote.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it's getting real.
So what happens?
Well, luckily, the priest is there.
Okay.
And he manages to smooth things over.
How?
He convinces the officer that Don Quixote is, you know...
Not all there.
Yeah, not exactly in his right mind.
Let's just say eccentric.
Exactly.
Okay, so...
They don't arrest him.
No, but they do lock him in a cage.
In a cage?
Yeah, to, like, contain him, you know.
And what does Don Quixote think about that?
Oh, he thinks it's another enchantment, of course.
Of course he does.
Always with the enchantment.
So they're taking him back home, I guess?
Well, they're trying to.
Okay.
But on the road, they meet this interesting character.
Whom?
A Toledo canon.
A canon, like a...
Like a church official, but also like a scholar, you know?
Uh-huh.
And they get into this heated debate.
About what?
About chivalric romances.
Oh, wow.
The canon is, like, these books are absurd. They're harmful. Okay, I can see that.
But Don Quixote is like, no, they're full of idealism and imagination.
So it's like reason versus
fantasy.
Right.
Exactly.
And where does Cervantes stand on all this?
That's the brilliant thing he doesn't tell us.
So he's presenting both sides.
And letting us decide.
I like that.
It's a very modern approach in a way.
Yeah. Okay, so they finally get Don Quixote home.
Eventually, after a few more misadventures.
Like what?
Oh, he gets into a brawl with a goat herd.
A goat herd?
And even a group of pilgrims.
This guy can't stay out of trouble.
He's like a magnet for it.
Okay, so bruised and battered.
Yes. Back to his village.
His niece and housekeeper are probably relieved.
Oh, they're thrilled to have him home.
But he's not done yet, is he?
This is just the end of part 1.
Right. We've got a whole other part to go.
Part 2 is where things get really interesting.
Okay, so what's different about part 2?
Well, for one thing, Don Quixote is famous now.
Famous?
Yeah, the book we've been talking about, part 1, was published.
Okay.
So now people recognize him.
They've read his adventures.
They've heard the stories.
That's meta.
It is very meta.
So what does he do?
Well, he sets out on a third sally.
Okay.
With Sancho Panza still by his side.
Of course.
And this time they're heading for El Toboso.
Which is where...
The home of Dulcinea.
Right. And Sancho's probably freaking out.
He's like, oh, no.
Because he made up the whole enchantment thing?
Exactly. He knows if Don Quixote sees the real Dulcinea...
It's all over.
The illusion will be shattered.
But Don Quixote's determined.
Oh, he's got to see her home at least.
Just to get a glimpse.
Yeah, he thinks it'll inspire him.
Okay, so what happens?
Well, they arrive at night.
Okay.
And Don Quixote starts seeing bad omens.
Like what?
Oh, just like things that spook him. He's very superstitious.
Okay, so he turns back.
He's like, nope, not going in there.
So Don Quixote?
It is?
Okay, so Sancho has to go in alone.
He's on a mission to find Dulcinea.
But he knows he can't.
He can't find her because she's not who Don Quixote thinks she is.
All right, so he has to improvise again.
He's a master of improvisation.
Okay, so what does he do?
Well, he sees these 3 peasant girls.
Okay.
And he's like, there she is.
He tells Don Quixote that they're Dulcinea and her ladies-in-waiting.
Exactly. And Don Quixote's eyesight isn't what it used to be.
Right.
So he believes it.
Oh, my God.
He's so caught up in his fantasy
that he doesn't even question it.
Nope. Oh, man.
And then to top it off, Sancho comes up with another lie.
What's this one?
He tells Don Quixote that there is an enchantment preventing him from seeing Dulcinea's true beauty.
Oh, my God.
It's so ridiculous, but it works.
Don Quixote buys it.
He totally buys it.
Okay, so what happens next?
Well, they encounter a duke and duchess.
A duke and duchess?
Yeah, who are big fans of Don Quixote.
They've read the book.
They've heard the story.
Rubies.
They're like, oh my God, it's Don Quixote.
That's so funny.
It is. And they decide to have some fun with him.
Oh, no.
They're pranksters.
Okay, what kind of pranks? Well, one of the most famous ones is they convinced Don Quixote that the only way to break Dulcinea's enchantment is for Sancho to give himself 3,300 lashes.
3,300 lashes.
Yes.
Poor Sancho.
I know, right?
He's always getting the short end of the stick.
He is, but he tries to negotiate his way out of it.
Of course.
It leads to these hilarious conversations between them.
So it's like a test of their friendship.
It really is.
Okay, so does he actually do it?
We'll have to wait for part 3 to find out.
Oh, you're killing me.
But I will say this.
Yeah?
Thanks to the Duke, Sancho actually gets to be governor for a while.
He gets his island.
He gets his island.
Oh, my God.
It's all part of the charade, of course.
Right.
But Sancho actually does a pretty good job.
Really?
He governs with common sense.
Wow.
And compassion.
So he's not just a bumbling sidekick.
No, he's got hidden depths.
Okay, but it doesn't last.
Sadly, no.
The Duke's having too much fun.
The Duke likes to play his games.
Okay, so what about Don Quixote? Is he still lost in his fantasy world?
Well, something interesting starts to happen.
What?
He starts to question things.
Really?
Yeah, he's not as certain as he used to be.
Maybe all those pranks are starting to...
to him.
Yeah, make him think.
Yeah, he's starting to see the cracks in his worldview.
Okay, and is this where the Night of the White Moon comes in?
Oh, yes, a pivotal moment in part 2.
So who is this mysterious knight?
Well, he challenges Don Quixote to a duel.
On the beach?
On the beach in Barcelona.
Okay.
And Don Quixote loses.
He loses.
He loses.
Oh, no.
And according to the chivalric code, the loser has to obey the winner.
Okay, so what does this Knight of the White Moon want?
Well, here's the twist.
Okay.
It's actually a young man from Don Quixote's village.
No way.
Yes, in disguise.
What?
And he demands that Don Quixote give up his knight errantry.
Give it all up.
What? No more adventure.
No more tilting at windmill.
Exactly.
Okay.
So this defeat, this forced renunciation, it's the beginning of Don Quixote's return to sanity. They're heading back home defeated, right? Don Quixote's lost his duel.
Yeah, no more knight errantry for him.
At least not for a year.
Right, that was the deal.
But even on this journey back home, they're still talking about Dulcinea.
Of course, always got to talk about the lady love.
And Sancho comes up with a new angle.
Okay, what is it?
He tells Don Quixote that the enchantment's been lifted.
When she's not enchanted anymore?
Nope. Back to her true form, he says.
Oh, Sancho.
But think about it.
Okay.
He knows Don Quixote's really fragile right now.
Yeah, after that defeat.
So he's trying to protect him.
By making up another lie.
It's not really a lie. He says it's like a counter-enchantment.
Right.
But it's pretty selfless when you think about it.
It is. Yeah, he's just trying to keep Don Quixote from losing it completely.
Exactly. They've got this bond, you know.
They've been through a lot together.
They understand each other, even when they're driving each other crazy.
So they get back to the village.
Back to La Mancha.
And what does Don Quixote do?
He announces he's done with knight errantry.
He's hanging up his armor.
Yeah, he wants to be a shepherd now.
A shepherd.
Back to nature's simple life.
So he's giving up his dreams.
I think he's realizing they were just illusions.
Yeah, but his housekeeper's not so sure.
She's worried about him.
Yeah, she's like, you're not looking so good.
She's like, stay home, rest up.
And she's right, isn't she?
He gets really sick.
Oh, no.
Takes to his bed.
So the end for Don Quixote?
Well, in a way, yes.
What do you mean?
During his illness, something amazing happens.
Okay.
He wakes up from a dream, and his mind is clear.
He's not Don Quixote anymore.
He's Alonso Quijano again.
Wow.
He's at peace.
So he's sane again.
But it's kind of sad, too.
Yeah, like he's lost that spark.
He sees his adventures differently now.
He regrets them.
He knows he caused a lot of trouble.
He even writes it into his will.
Yeah, tells his niece she can't marry anyone who reads chivalric romances.
Talk about a change of heart.
It's like he's mourning everyone.
About the dangers of fantasy.
Of getting lost in stories.
So Cervantes lets him find peace.
Yeah, he gives him that redemption.
Before the end.
It's a beautiful moment.
But Sancho doesn't give up, does he?
He tries to bring Don Quixote back.
Or Alonso Quijano, I guess we should say.
Yeah, he reminds him of Dulcinea.
Of their adventures.
But it's no use.
Alonso Quijano is done.
He's made his peace.
And then peacefully.
Yeah, surrounded by his loved ones.
And that's the end of Don Quixote.
Cervantes makes it clear.
No more sequels, no more fake adventures.
This is the story.
The ingenious gentleman of La Mancha.
That's it.
So wow, what a journey.
It's a classic for a reason.
It makes you think about so much.
About imagination idealism.
The power of stories.
And how they shape our lives.
Yeah, it's still relevant today.
Absolutely.
Like Cervantes is talking to us through the centuries.
He's asking us, what are our windmills?
What are we tilting at?
What are the things we believe in?
Even when they seem impossible.
Yeah, that's the question he leaves us with.
It's a good one.
It is.
So there you have it, folks, Don Quixote.
A masterpiece.
Go read it.
If you haven't already.
It's a wild ride.
And a timeless one.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Until next time. Until next time.
All right. Let's jump into this, shall we? Lasers. They're everywhere, right?
It seems like it these days.
But what do we really know about them? I mean, besides those awesome light shows.
Well, you're in luck. Because
Uh-huh.
we're about to go deep on lasers today.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Our listeners are fascinated by them.
As they should be.
We've got a whole mountain of research here to help us.
Excellent.
Even some stuff from Wikipedia.
Ooh, the laser Bible.
Right. So before we get lost in all the physics, did you know lasers were once called a solution looking for a problem?
Huh. Yeah, that's a classic. It happens a lot with big inventions, I guess. People don't always see the potential right away.
Exactly. But, okay, let's get down to basics. What is a laser, anyway? Besides, like a super cool beam of light.
Okay, well, the secret's kind of right there in the name.
The name?
Laser, it stands for. Light amplification by stimulated emission of radiation.
Okay, that's a mouthful.
It is, but each word is important.
I bet.
It tells us how they work, their magic, so to speak.
Okay, so then what makes laser light, special? I keep reading about how it's coherent, but what does that even mean?
Right. So think about a regular light bulb, right?
Okay. Oh, yeah.
It's putting out light in every direction, right?
Yeah.
It's like a jumbled mess of photons, those little particles of light. They're all over the place. But in a laser,
Yeah.
all those photons, they're like perfectly lined up.
Oh, interesting.
Like a marching band, all in sync.
Mm-hmm.
They're all moving in the same direction at the same wavelength. That's coherence.
Okay, I'm starting to get it. But how do you get those photons, to march in formation like that?
That's where the stimulated emission part comes in. It's like, imagine a row of dominoes ready to topple.
Oh, okay.
You just need that one little push to start a chain reaction, right? Lasers are kind of similar. You've got these atoms, but they're excited.
Excited.
Yeah, they have extra energy, like they're pumped up.
Right.
Then a photon with just the right energy comes along. It hits one of those excited atoms.
Yeah.
Bam. The atom releases its energy as another photon. But here's the key. This new photon is going in the same direction as the first one.
Like it's copying it.
Exactly. And these two photons, they can go on and stimulate even more emissions.
So it just keeps growing.
A cascade of perfectly synced light waves. That's your laser beam.
Wow, okay. That makes a lot more sense. So this whole coherence thing, why does it matter so much? Does it just make the beam look neater?
Well, there is that, but it's way more than just looks. Think about this. Because it's so coherent, you can focus a laser beam really precisely.
Yeah.
It's like the difference between trying to, burn a hole in paper with sunlight
Right.
versus a laser pointer.
I remember using a magnifying glass to try to burn things as a kid. It took forever.
Exactly. You can focus sunlight, but you'll never get that laser intensity, that pinpoint accuracy.
So it's a focus that makes lasers so powerful.
It's a big part of it, that focused energy.
Yeah.
It's what lets lasers do everything. Cut metal, perform surgery, you name it.
Amazing. Well, that definitely clears things up. So speaking of history, I read that the first laser was built back in 1960, and it was described as having the power of, get this, one Gillette.
One Gillette?
Yeah, a Gillette, like a razor blade.
You got it.
They meant it could burn through a razor blade.
Exactly. That was their way of showing off its power back then.
I guess that would get people's attention.
Definitely. But even before that, there were masers, which are like microwave lasers.
Right. Masers. And then after that first laser, we got ruby lasers and gas lasers and semiconductor lasers. Like a whole family tree of lasers.
Oh, that's a great way to put it. And each type has its own strengths and quirks. Semiconductor lasers were huge, for example.
Really? Why?
Think about it. No semiconductor lasers, no smartphones, no laptops, heck, no fiber optic internet.
Oh, wow. I never thought of that.
They're the tiny lasers that made everything portable. They're in barcode scanners, CD players, you name it.
Huh. Lasers really are everywhere. It's like a rainbow of lasers out there, each with its own unique purpose.
Exactly. We could spend a whole deep dive just talking about the types, but maybe we should focus on the ones that are most, relevant to you guys, the listeners.
Great idea. So, like, what should we start with?
Well, gas lasers are pretty classic.
Right.
The helium neon laser, for example, is the one that makes that iconic red light.
Oh, the red laser pointer. I have one of those on my keychain.
There you go. And then you've got the carbon dioxide laser. It's a workhorse. Hundreds of watts of power.
Wow. What do they use those for?
They're big in industry. Cutting and welding metal, that kind of heavy lifting.
Sounds powerful. And what about solid-state lasers? The ones that use neodymium. I was reading about how they create all sorts of colors of laser light.
You're right. Neodymium is pretty versatile. It can emit light at different wavelengths, which means you can get lasers of all sorts of colors.
So it's not just about the color, but what each color can do.
Exactly. Green lasers are often used in those holographic displays you see, while ultraviolet lasers are essential for making semiconductors.
Wow, I never knew. Each color has its own job. So what else is there?
Well, you've also got fighter lasers. Super interesting design.
How so?
The light is actually confined within a fiber optic cable.
Interesting.
So it keeps the beam super focused, really efficient, no energy wasted spreading out.
Oh, I get it. So the fiber acts like a guide for the laser light.
You got it. This design means you can get really high power and efficiency, which is why they're great for heavy-duty stuff, like serious cutting, welding, and even, believe it or not, telecommunications.
That's incredible. It seems like there's a laser for everything. But then you've got those super futuristic sounding lasers too, like free electron lasers.
Ah, yes, free electron lasers. They're in a league of their own.
What makes them so special?
They're crazy powerful, and they can be tuned to emit just about any wavelength of light you want.
Whoa, really?
Yep. Microwaves, X-rays, everything in between. They don't even rely on atoms like most lasers.
What do they use then?
They use a beam of electrons moving at nearly the speed of light. Crazy, right?
That sounds intense. What do they do with those?
Mostly cutting-edge research, like figuring out the structure of matter or developing new medical treatments.
It's amazing, really.
Yeah.
We've gone from burning razor blades to unlocking the secrets of the universe with lasers.
That's a great way to put it. And we haven't even scratched the surface of how lasers are used in the real world. Ready to dive into all the awesome things lasers are doing out there?
Absolutely. Let's shine a light on how lasers are changing the world. Stay tuned.
Whoa.
Okay, so we've talked about what lasers are, but now I want to know, what are they actually doing out there in the world?
Great question. And the answer is a lot more than you might think.
Like what?
Well, think about the last time you went to the grocery store. Remember when the cashier scanned your items?
Yeah.
That was a laser. Barcode reader, probably.
Oh, I never really thought about that.
Or let's say you're streaming a movie at home.
Okay, yeah.
All that data zipping through fiber optic cables, right? Guess what's carrying the signal?
Lasers.
Lasers. They're everywhere, even when we don't see them.
Huh? That's crazy. I never realized how much we rely on lasers.
It's true, but, beyond the everyday stuff, lasers have totally revolutionized medicine, too.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Like laser eye surgery, LASIK.
Exactly. That's probably the most well-known one. Pretty amazing how they can reshape your cornea with a laser, isn't it?
It is. I know a few people who've had it, and they're so happy with the results.
Yeah.
It's like magic.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. And it's not just for vision correction anymore either.
What else do they use it for?
All sorts of stuff. They can remove skin blemishes, break up kidney stones. They even use lasers to treat some types of cancer.
Wow, so lasers are like a surgeon's best friend now.
Pretty much. They give surgeons such incredible precision and control. And then you've got all the less invasive treatments too. Laser hair removal, skin resurfacing.
Oh, right. I've even seen ads for laser treatments that claim to reduce cellulite. Do those really work?
Well, the jury's still out on that one. But the point is, lasers are being used for all sorts of things in medicine, from the really common to the super cutting edge.
It's mind-blowing how far it's come. But lasers aren't just in hospitals, right? They're all over the place in industry, too.
You bet. Manufacturing couldn't live without them. Cutting, welding, marking, even 3D printing.
3D printing with lasers. Now that is cool.
It is. Lasers can cut metal with incredible accuracy, make super strong welds, and they can even etch those really intricate designs on all sorts of materials. And then there's the telecommunications side of things, too.
Right. Fiber optic cables.
Exactly. The backbone of the internet, all running on laser light. Our digital world wouldn't be the same without them.
So we've got lasers in our phones, in our hospitals, in factories, keeping the internet running. It's wild. But they're also just, like, fun.
You're right. What would entertainment be without lasers? Think about those huge laser light shows at concerts. Or even just a simple laser pointer.
Oh, laser tag.
Yeah.
Love that as a kid. And yeah, you're right. Who doesn't love a good laser pointer? Especially if you have a cat.
Exactly. But speaking of laser pointers, probably a good time to talk about safety too.
Right. Yeah, that's probably important. It's easy to forget sometimes, but lasers can be dangerous if you're not careful.
Very true. Even those little laser pointers can damage your eyes if you stare into the beam.
So it's not just the big industrial ones we need to worry about.
Nope. Any laser can be a risk. That's why they're classified based on their power, how much potential they have to cause harm.
I guess that makes sense. So how do you know what class a laser is?
They should all be labeled, thankfully. And it's important to follow the safety guidelines for each class. Like, you always want to wear eye protection when you're working with those higher-powered lasers.
Okay, that's good advice. So don't stare into the beam, check the label, and be smart about it.
Exactly. Respect the laser, and it'll respect you right back.
Makes sense to me. But speaking of power, I was reading about some of the truly mind-blowing things scientists are doing with lasers these days. Have you heard of the National Ignition Facility?
Oh, yeah, NECEF. They're doing some amazing work.
What are they working on?
So they've got this massive laser system. We're talking 192 super powerful laser beams.
Whoa. What are they doing with all that laser power?
They're using those lasers to heat and compress a tiny little target, basically trying to recreate conditions similar to what you'd find in the core of the sun.
Wow, so they're using lasers to create miniature stars on Earth?
Pretty much. The goal is to achieve nuclear fusion, a clean, nearly limitless source of energy.
Okay, now that is incredible. And what about those lasers they're developing for space exploration?
Oh, yeah, there's some exciting stuff happening there, too.
Like what?
Well, they're talking about using lasers to propel spacecraft. Imagine that.
A laser-powered spaceship. That's straight out of science fiction.
It is. And that's not all. They could be used to power satellites, maybe even defend us against asteroid threats.
Seriously, that's amazing.
It really is. So you see, we've come a long way from burning through razor blades. Lasers are already an integral part of our world, and the future looks even brighter.
It's incredible to think about how something that was once considered a solution looking for a problem has become so essential.
Totally. It just goes to show you the power of human ingenuity and scientific curiosity. Who knows what amazing things lasers will help us achieve in the future.
I can't wait to find out. But before we get too carried away with the future of lasers, I think we need to circle back to that safety topic.
You're right. Safety is paramount, especially when we're talking about something as powerful as lasers.
Okay, so let's break it down. What are the key things everyone should know about laser safety? Okay, so let's break it down. Laser safety 101. What are the absolute essentials people need to know?
All right, well, rule number one, and this is a big one, never, ever point a laser directly at someone's eyes.
Yeah, that seems like a no-brainer.
You'd be surprised. But seriously, even those little laser pointers can cause damage, especially if you stare into the beam.
Right, yeah, I wouldn't want to risk it.
No.
Our eyes are pretty fragile.
Exactly. And it's not just about the power of the laser either. It's the concentrated nature of the light. It can really focus a lot of energy onto a tiny spot.
Which is what makes lasers so useful but also potentially harmful, right?
Exactly. So another thing to be aware of is the different laser classes.
Oh, yeah, you mentioned that earlier.
Right. So there's class 1, which is generally considered safe for normal use, like your typical laser pointer or barcode scanner.
Okay, those make sense. What about the higher classes?
Well, they go all the way up to class 4, which are those really high-powered lasers used in industry and research.
Those are the ones that can cut through metal, right?
Exactly. And those can be seriously dangerous, not just to your eyes, but to your skin as well. They can even start fires if you're not careful.
Whoa, okay. So how do you know what class a laser is?
Good question. All lasers are supposed to have a label indicating their safety class.
Oh, that's good. So, like, if I buy a laser pointer, it'll say what class it is.
Exactly. And then you can look up the safety guidelines for that specific class. Like, you always want to wear the proper eye protection when working with those higher powered lasers.
Right, safety first. I wouldn't mess around with that.
Definitely not. But overall, I think the biggest thing is just using common sense. Don't point lasers at people. Be aware of the laser's classification and follow the safety guidelines. Respect the laser and you'll be fine.
Respects the laser. I like that. Okay, so we've learned a lot about lasers today, what they are, how they work, all the amazing things they're used for. But before we wrap things up, I wanted to leave everyone with one last thought.
Oh, I like where this is going. Hit me with it.
So imagine a laser so powerful that it could completely change the way we produce energy.
Okay, now you're talking. What kind of laser are we talking about here?
Well, it's still theoretical, but scientists have been thinking about the possibility of creating a gamma ray laser.
Whoa, a gamma ray laser.
Yeah.
That's next level stuff. Gamma rays are incredibly energetic, right? Even more so than X-rays.
Right, so what could we do with a gamma ray laser?
Well, if scientists could figure out how to make one, and that's a big if, it could have mind-blowing applications, like potentially triggering nuclear fusion reaction.
Wait, really? We could use a laser to create fusion? Like clean, unlimited energy?
Potentially. It could be a game changer.
That's incredible. What else could we do with a gamma ray laser?
Well, who knows? It's all speculation at this point. But think about things like advanced medical imaging, new materials, even space exploration. Imagine using a gamma ray laser to propel a spaceship to another star.
Now that is some serious sci-fi stuff. A gamma ray laser sounds like it would be a truly revolutionary technology.
It would, but it's important to remember that we're still a long way off from making that a reality.
Okay, so maybe not tomorrow, but still.
Yeah.
It's exciting to think about. Who knows? Maybe someday gamma ray lasers will be as common as laser pointers.
Huh. Stranger things have happened. That's the beauty of science. What seems impossible today could be commonplace tomorrow.
Absolutely. Well, that's a great note to end on. We've explored the fascinating world of lasers from their humble beginnings to their incredible potential. It's amazing how much they've already changed our world.
It has been a real deep dive. Thanks for having me.
It was a pleasure. And to all our listeners out there, thank you for joining us on this laser-powered adventure. Keep those laser beams focused on the future, and we'll catch you next time. All right, so get this today. We are diving deep into the world of mantises.
Oh, mantises.
I know. You're probably thinking those bug-eyed dudes with the praying arms.
Yeah, they are iconic.
Yeah, they've definitely got that look down. But I'm telling you, there is so much more to these creatures than you might think.
Absolutely.
We've got their Wikipedia page all queued up, and trust me, some of this stuff is seriously wild.
What always blows my mind is how easily we underestimate mantises, you know?
Yeah.
We see that prayer pose.
It's like, oh, how peaceful.
Exactly. And we think peaceful, but they are the total opposite. They're incredibly sophisticated predators
Okay.
with a history that goes back millions of years.
So we're talking serious ancient history here. I was reading up on this, and apparently they are more closely related to termites and cockroaches than they are to stick insects.
Isn't that wild? It's like finding out your quiet neighbor is secretly a rock star.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, what? So that family connection, though, that's got to offer some clues about their evolution, right?
Oh, absolutely. You know, for example, some mantis species, just like termites, they actually exhibit these rudimentary forms of social behavior, which I think is fascinating.
It's true.
Yeah.
I never would have pictured a mantis hanging out, like, in a group.
Right. It really challenges our assumptions.
Totally.
Okay.
So how far back are we talking, evolutionarily? Give me the prehistoric mantis lowdown.
Okay, so picture this. The early Cretaceous period.
Okay.
We're talking like 145 to 100 million years ago.
Wow.
Dinosaurs are roaming the earth.
Okay.
And among them are little buddies, the early mantises.
No way.
And get this, we even have fossil evidence.
Shut up.
I know. Santon mantis axelrodi, discovered in Brazil.
Okay.
This little fossil shows that even back then, they had those spiky forelegs, perfect for snatching prey.
So they've been rocking that same hunting gear for millions of years.
Millions of years. It's an incredibly effective design.
Clearly.
Yeah.
But it's not just about those grabbing arms, though, right? There's something about their senses that's always kind of blown my mind.
Oh, yeah.
It's like how they hear or something.
You're talking about ultrasound, right?
Yeah, maybe.
That is one of the most remarkable things about these creatures. They can hear frequencies way, way beyond our human range. It's like having a built-in bat detector.
Seriously. That's like a superpower straight out of a comic book.
I know.
But how does that even work? Do they have, like, superpowered ears hidden under those wings or something?
Not quite ears, but they do have a specialized auditory organ, and it's located on their chest. It's incredibly sensitive to those high-frequency sounds.
Oh, wow.
Especially the ones that bats use for echolocation, which is pretty cool.
Okay, that's officially the coolest thing I've learned all week.
Right.
So it's basically an early warning system against getting snatched out of the air.
Exactly. Imagine you're a mantis just hanging out on a branch, and suddenly you pick up these ultrasonic pings getting closer. You know instantly that a predator is homing in.
That's intense.
Right. It gives them those precious seconds to make an escape.
That's incredible. They're like the ninjas of the insect world.
They really are.
All stealth, sensory awareness. But all this talk about senses and escape has me wondering.
What's that?
What are they actually hunting with all that stealth?
Well, that is where things get even more interesting. We call mantises generalist predators, which
sounds kind of boring.
It does sound a little dry, I'll give you that. But it means they have a very diverse menu, let's put it that way.
So if it moves, they'll eat it.
Pretty much.
What kind of creatures are we talking?
We're talking anything from flies, crickets, moths, caterpillars.
Right.
If it's small enough to overpower, it's fair game.
So like a buffet of the skies. Sign me up. I'm picturing them like patiently waiting on a leash, just snatching their prey right out of the air.
You're not wrong. A lot of mantises are ambush predators. Masters of disguise. But here's the thing. Some are actually active hunters.
Whoa, really?
Oh yeah, they stalk their prey.
Get out.
Moving slow, deliberately.
Get away.
Like tiny tigers in the grass.
But hold up. Tigers? I thought we were talking mantises, not like fierce jungle cats.
It's true. But while those larger active hunters might not be chasing down gazelles or anything, they're definitely going after bigger game than flies.
Oh, okay.
We're talking lizards, frogs, even small birds.
Birds. Seriously. Okay, now that's just terrifying. So it's not just about like lightning fast reflexes. They've got strategy too.
Absolutely, and they need it. Because with all that hunting prowess, they've got to avoid becoming someone else's dinner too, right?
Oh, good point.
Which brings us to one of their most incredible adaptations, camouflage.
Oh, tell me about it. I have seen pictures of those flower mantises.
Oh, yeah.
They look like they belong at a botanical garden, not out in the wild, hunting.
They're amazing, and they're not the only ones. Some mantises blend seamlessly into leaves.
Wow, their bodies mimicking like every vein and imperfection. Others disappear against the bark, practically invisible to the naked eye.
It's like they're wearing the perfect invisibility cloak.
Right.
But I imagine there's more to it than just looking the part.
Oh, you're absolutely right. Take those flower mantises, for instance.
Okay.
Their camouflage isn't just about blending in.
Right.
It's about deception.
Oh, interesting.
They've evolved to resemble specific flowers, mimicking their colors, even their scent.
So it's like they're setting a trap.
Exactly.
Luring in unsuspecting pollinators with the promise of a sweet treat, and then...
And then they become the treat.
Yikes.
It's a pretty ingenious strategy, though, you have to admit.
That is pretty brilliant.
It highlights just how diverse and specialized mantis adaptations can be.
Okay, I have to ask. With all this talk about hunting and camouflage and everything, is there ever a time when mantises aren't focused on, well, being mantises?
You're talking about their love lives, right?
Maybe. But I'm sensing a but coming here. Well, mantis romance, it's a bit more complicated than your average love story.
Oh, okay.
You know, it's the thing everybody seems to know about mantises, even if they don't know much else.
You're talking about that behavior, aren't you?
Oh, yeah.
The one that's made them both famous and a little infamous?
Exactly.
Okay.
We've got to address the elephant, or maybe the mantis in the room. Sexual cannibalism.
All right, lay it on me. Is it really as common as people say? Are all mantis romances doomed to end with the female biting off the male's head?
Thankfully, no, not at all.
Okay, good.
It's true. Female mantises sometimes eat their mates after,
Right.
or even during mating, but it's not a foregone conclusion in every encounter.
So it's not a death sentence for every male mantis who dares to find a mate?
Not at all. And it might surprise you to learn that in many cases, mating happens with zero cannibalism.
Oh, interesting.
Several factors influence whether a female decides to make a meal of her mate or not.
Like what? Spill the tea. Is it a matter of, like, her being hangry, or is there something else going on? Okay, so we're talking about a mantis mystery here.
Yeah.
What makes the difference between a peaceful mating and, well, a cannibalistic encounter?
Well, one key factor seems to be diet.
Okay.
Studies have shown that a well-fed female mantis is much less likely to cannibalize her mate.
Interesting.
Still like, not hungry.
Exactly. Like, I'm good. I had a big lunch. But if she's struggling to find food, that male suddenly looks a lot more appetizing.
So it's a bit like, honey, you look delicious, but in the mantis world.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense, I guess, from a survival standpoint.
Right.
But what about those cases where the female does eat the male? Is it just a gruesome act, or is there something more to it?
That's where things get really fascinating.
Okay.
Some research suggests that males might actually gain a reproductive advantage from being eaten.
Hold on, back up the train. How can being eaten be an advantage? That doesn't sound like a winning strategy to me. I know, it seems counterintuitive.
Yeah.
But think about it this way. When a male is cannibalized, the mating process often lasts longer.
Oh, okay.
And a longer mating session can mean greater fertilization success.
Oh, wow.
It's a macabre trade-off, for sure.
Yeah.
But in evolutionary terms, passing on your genes, that's the ultimate goal.
Right.
Even if it means sacrificing your own body.
Wow. That's some next-level dedication to ensuring your lineage continues.
Yeah.
Talk about a sacrifice for the sake of future generations. But, you know, when I think about mantises, it's not just their hunting prowess or their intense love lives that come to mind.
Right.
They've also made quite a splash in human culture, haven't they?
It's true.
Yeah.
Mantises have captivated human imagination for centuries.
Totally.
Appearing in mythology, art, even martial arts.
But I remember reading about that. There are those kung fu styles inspired by mantis movements, right?
Exactly.
It's incredible how we can find inspiration in even the smallest creatures.
It really speaks to their unique presence and the awe they inspire.
Totally.
You know, in ancient Greece,
Yeah.
mantises were believed to have these guiding powers, showing lost travelers the way home.
Wow.
In some cultures, they're seen as symbols of good luck or prosperity.
It's like they've hopped right out of the garden and into our stories and legends.
I love that. And it's true.
Yeah.
They really have.
So we've talked about their ancient history, their amazing adaptations, their cultural significance.
Right.
But what about their future? I mean, we share this planet with them.
Yeah.
And we haven't always been the best roommates to our insect counterparts.
That's a really important point to consider. You know, as we learn more about mantises, we also have to think about the impact of habitat loss, climate change, pesticide use. All of these things are affecting their populations. It makes you wonder what will become of these remarkable creatures as our world continues to change.
It's a question worth pondering for sure. Well, here we are at the end of our deep dive into the world of mantises. I don't know about you, but I am walking away with such a newfound appreciation for these creatures.
Me too.
They're not just bug-eyed insects with praying arms.
There's so much more.
They're survivors, masters of disguise, even a source of inspiration for our stories and technologies.
That's amazing.
We've learned so much, from their ancient origins to their surprisingly complex lives.
Right. Who knew?
Who knew there was so much to discover about the mantis?